I suggest we kick it off with a short introduction of our speaker today. As you have already heard, Stefan Verbiest will be taking the lead in this webinar and will be showing us around our new virtual world. As we all know, there has been quite some things happening in the market lately with the takeover of VMware by Broadcom. So yeah, there's a big buzz around Nutanix at the moment, and we really wanted to jump on this opportunity to kind of help you all navigate this new virtual world. And Stefan Verbiest has been in this world for quite some time. He has a lot of experience in VMware as well. He was there for 10 years before he started at Nutanix. He will also be your contact for every channel for every channel contact here in this webinar. So if you need technical assistance, Stefan will be there for you guys. So yeah, let's kick it off. Stefan Verbiest, welcome.
Thank you. So, and good morning to you all, and thanks for having me, Caroline. So, coming from VMware, I am now in the new virtual world. One of the things I wanted to also make clear is that move to Nutanix, it's also a bit of me explaining why I moved to Nutanix. So virtualization as such, that's even invented by IBM, and I'm not going to go into that historic background, but it should be like a commodity. Now, due to all of the fuss and changes that are happening by or at VMware by Broadcom, because it's Broadcom that is pulling the strings, there is like a huge interest in, okay, what are the alternatives? And that's basically what I will be talking about during this presentation. It's on the technical side, what are the possibilities? How do we migrate? And you will see that there are a lot of, let's say, it depends and caveats that you need to also look at with your customer. Because it is and will still be, VMware is a good technology, don't get me wrong. I'm not here to spread any FUD. It's only about there is a concern, there is an uncertainty at the end customers and the partners as such, how to, let's say, have in the near and longer future a viable and long-term solution where applications can run. Another thing is going to the public cloud, although the hyperscalers would like that. So there is still like a thing that we need to include into the private cloud or into the data centers of the customers. So that's a bit a wrapper around what this session is all about. I think we'll have like an hour and a half of content. Do raise your questions. I have also the chat open. I will look at it on a regular basis. And if you do not want to raise the questions now, you can definitely come back to me after this session. So what is my role at Nutanix? I'm the channel AD for the NEW region. NEW stands for North Europe, East Europe, which includes also the Benelux. That's on the North Europe side. So it's a quite big area that I am covering. And I'm covering that from channel perspective. So no end customers I am responsible for at all. And I'm coming from a 10-year background at VMware. Even before that, I worked at IBM. So my points earlier, yes, I know IBM also. People told me when I was at VMware, it was like the software mainframe company, or it became the software company. Software mainframe company. Now I do not, let's say, fully was occurring with that, but nevertheless, so that's a little bit of my background. At VMware, I was like a pre-sales covering the enterprise accounts, which are now called the strategic accounts. These are these 2000s, which VMware by Broadcom will directly handle. So that's me in a nutshell, and the move to Nutanix, I will also explain it during the presentation. And let me now, yeah. So this is a bit of the agenda which I have included on how to deal with these customers, what are things to be looking at, and how we as from a VMware perspective or from a Nutanix perspective, apologies, can definitely help you out on helping the VMware customers to migrate to Nutanix. So, as I mentioned, and this is, I don't want to spread any fuck at all. Again, I clearly want to mention it's a good technology. It has proven itself also, and that's where the risk is definitely at customers. But that uncertainty, it is being cleared out. That's for sure. But there is still some, how do we handle and where do we need to go, and what are basically also the alternatives which we have next to, let's say, yeah, paying Broadcom what they would like to get now as value for their products. I'll come back on the licensing parts, which is highly also being, let's say, changed by Broadcom at VMware. In one area, it's a good thing because the licensing was that complex that you could have, like, for a same use case, 3 different type of, let's say, licenses. So it's a positive sign, but it's also like customers are squeezed into a part that they have no longer a choice. It's the VMware by Broadcom highway, or it's not something else. So that's the uncertainty which we definitely see within the market, and where with Nutanix we are looking at to make that a good alternative choice from a /partner/end customer perspective. So why Nutanix? And why did I also look at it? So with Nutanix, I had like a broad or a long history. Nutanix was even brought to me before I even joined VMware, when they were like this pure hyper-converged solution. And they made basically that hyper-converged market, where also definitely VMware came in with vSAN. And then you had like these hardware vendors that with a specific appliance that would also then be promoting that to their end customers. But what I see at Nutanix is basically, let's say, that idea about that web scale infrastructure from which they started from in the beginning with that hyper converge, but to give that choice and to make that infrastructure, let's say, seamless. Whether you call it invisible or and then anywhere in terms of, let's say, where you need to be running your compute and storage resources, that makes it, let's say, quite obvious. For me, that choice, that simplicity, and that user interface, so making it easy for the people that need to manage this, these are key factors where also, when I'll compare it to VMware, was their strength. Now, one of the things definitely which we look at and are really proud of is also these NPS scores, which I must admit, from a VMware perspective and even from other vendors, these are much lower. So it's important also when there is something going on or something wrong, that at least also we immediately have your back, and we have that with the right type of, let's say, people with the right skills to be able to help out. So that's why where I see and where I made also that choice to leave VMware and get into Nutanix, because I see this as, let's say, the 2.0 or even 3.0, if I can call it that way, in terms of, let's say, where from an infrastructure perspective, you can have that private or that hybrid way of working, which also end customers are looking at, make it cost efficient and make it as simple as possible with the right performance, right availability that they and we need. So On that Nutanix Cloud Platform, I come back on that one because, okay, why Nutanix is one thing, but this is like the bread and butter which we have in our portfolio, and where I will also in one of my next slide clearly also mention where does the VMware products tie into this one. So where do you can compete with the different products and where not, maybe, because there is also, and that's definitely in the migration part, there are things that can become really fast, really complex. And that's where also you need to have like a good VMware, let's say, knowledge to be able to discover, assess, analyze it, and then move it over to the Nutanix portfolio, whether it is on the NCI piece at the bottom, so that let's call it a software-defined data center, or it's into the hybrids more on your right-hand side with the Nutanix cloud clusters, or you go on top more on the NCM for the Nutanix Cloud Manager, comparable with the vRealize suite within VMware. All of these, you need to also make sure you understand it from where you are coming from and what customers already is doing with it, and where we should be then landing within Nutanix, and what basically they were achieving, because it could be that certain things that have been built in the past, and when I say in the past, it could be 6 to a year out, there are maybe more optimized, more efficient ways to do the same thing. Look at the outcomes, don't look at, okay, basically doing the copy of what they already have. So for the people that do not know, that's also on from our side, Nutanix side, we also have like this new portfolio 2.0, as it is called, and that's also making it quite straightforward. Like basically also VMware by Broadcom did with VMware licenses, but we were first, and we were first also with the core-based licensing and subscription-based, etc., etc. But this is like an easy way on NCI and CM, and then you can bundle the NCI and CM into NCP. And we even, since we have also a choice of hypervisors, you also have that NCA data where you can then use it from a pure hyperconverged capability or solution, and then run the hypervisor which you desire. Can still be the vSphere one or another one like Hyper-V, for example. All details are definitely on the link below. You can also reach out to the CSM, direct software link, which resides for Belgium and Luxembourg at Nutanix. And definitely there also I can help out, or I can get you with the right level of information if it is something really specific or really, let's say, detailed at the customer. But this is just to give you like a highlight. Our licensing capabilities and portfolio is also quite straightforward and easy to, let's say, look into and choose. And I have a couple of examples even later into my deck. Now, there is one thing about the technical architecture, the migration, and then how do you do the migration? We'll definitely come back to that one. But there is also something that an end customer, a reseller, even on a distribution level, with exclusive here, that is our host today in this webinar. Everybody needs to also earn their living, needs to have some bread and butter, and even some, if possible, some meat or cheese or whatever you to put on that bread. That's why we also created like the search program. For the people that do not know what search is, search program is a program towards resellers and distributors, and to basically earn some additional money on VMware customers. And there is a list of about 5,000 customers on EMEA level, which we have put out there, and so you can look into that via the Partner Central. And these are customers, so end customers that never have done, let's say, a deal with Nutanix over the last 3 years. Does it mean that this list is complete? No, not at all. Maybe you could also know about a customer that has no Nutanix at all. Be aware that you can also add that to the list and earn also that additional, let's say, money on that customer next to your current rebates that you already are earning via the Elevate program. Just wanted to point that out. So this is like an add-on, especially focused towards the VMware install base. What is this all about? Three key, let's say, areas or elements of the search program. It's to, of course, attract, and that's one for the partners to onboard a distribution, but also for the end customers to onboard at the partners. Then to also get much more skills certified on the Nutanix portfolio. So that's also included in there. And of course, then there is like the earnings piece. So getting more money, more rebates when you sell through the search program to these end customers that are coming from VMware or resellers. That's from a distribution side. Okay. That's one thing. Next to that, and that's then the one that you can, let's say, combine. There is also this VMware to Nutanix migration promo that already existed. For the people that do not know, so this was a program where you can have, like, it needs to be a 3-year deal, but 1 year is for free. So from an end customer, they also get like a lot of, let's say, initial money back, or that they can invest in something else or can reuse for the migration, for example, or to look at additional, let's say, services. But that program that you might already be aware of has also slightly changed. First of all, it has been extended so to 2025, which you can already see on the slide. But we also lowered the thresholds on the TCV. So that means when we lowered that from $300K to $100K, that means about every VMware customer is a potential, let's say, interesting party to use that promotion towards. Where previously it was 300K, this was like the bigger or SMB customers and higher. Now we are even lowering that threshold, just for your information. So be aware, this is also in there. There is also links towards that promotion with some additional ideas, qualification criteria, etc. But be aware, this is additionally to the search program, so you can combine these even. Okay. Now we have like, okay, why Nutanix? Why did I change? But okay, how to start this type of, let's say, conversation. And these are a couple of, let's say, things I saw from my 10 years at VMware. Things are also are from a personal level on discussions I have had with the end customers. But definitely the first, which is we already touched upon that. It's that cost going from perpetual to that core-based licensing to subscription-based, which definitely will have an impact on the prices and definitely will have and is having, because we know we have gotten confirmation by end customers that their price increased by X factor, double or even higher. So that's definitely a trigger where now end customers are looking at, let's say, what are the alternatives and how can we lower that risk? Because in this case, it is about also them looking at how can we lower that risk. And I'll come back on lowering that risk also on the migration area. The world also is changing. So to give you an idea, and there are people also into the call that know this. So Nutanix was like in the beginning one of the best friends of VMware because they were awarded 3 times consecutive as one of the best partners at their flagship, and so VMware or VMworld calls at that time. Now it's called VMware Explorer. I do not know if they will keep that name for the event later this year in US and in Barcelona. But nevertheless, so they were doing something right on that hyper-converge where they created that market, which I already mentioned. And of course, from the moment there was like an hypervisor, which was the bread and butter of VMware, and also VMware solution vSAN came much more enterprise ready. There was like a fight on even C-level VMware between that was, let's say, even at certain levels a bit childish. Now that world was changing already at that level, and we see also that customers more and more also with the public cloud that came in, the AWS, Azure, the Googles. So customers no longer were wanted to be that dependent on VMware, and were looking for things to move around based on application requirements, whether that was a refactoring or replatforming of the application, or it was basically like a lift and shift approach. So that was a thing that definitely I saw within VMware, because we needed to also help the customers into a multi-cloud, hybrid cloud perspective. So that's similar as what we at Nutanix are promoting, or having in our portfolio. So that world that is changing, we can adopt to it, and we can provide with solutions. Then there are customers that are looking for, can we do the same for less cost or similar cost than what they had with perpetual? And don't get me wrong, and that they really can lower that risk immediately. With, let's say, moving to another hypervisor and just running the number of VMs that they need to be running, and making sure that their core business is kept alive without an impact. An impact on performance, on availability, but also on the people that maintain it. So that's also a thing that definitely was a key concern when I spoke to customers, and these were enterprise customers, that they looked at, okay, at that moment in time, it was also KVM, it was also Hyper-V in a less extent that was being looked at, and where you still had a battle of the hypervisors, which currently for me, more hypervisor is like a commodity. It's a means to an end, but it needs to be like having these enterprise grade features like HA, like DRS. So making sure a machine, when a hardware component fails, it can immediately recuperate from that one or recover. And there is also like always looking at the best performance for that virtual machine on the hardware. Whether you call it VM happiness or best performance, it's basically all the same, but it's about these type of, let's say, features that you need to be having within your private cloud, within your own data center, next to, of course, making sure you can do simple backups, that when the SHXX hits the fan, you can at least have also a way out. I think this week, again, it was emphasized, you need to also have like a good security solution, because even one of our best Belgian beers was attacked, was, let's say, into a ransomware attack. So from the infrastructure up, you need to, let's say, make sure you have your security wrapped into the platform, on the network, on your virtual machines, and even at the end, when everything has, let's say, been bypassed or has been, let's say, gone through, that at least also that backup can also be like ransomware aware on that one. So that's a thing that definitely also is high on a concern from an end customer, and where the same for less cost or the same cost is definitely a big point. Another one, which is definitely one that I have been in multiple discussions with end customers, is that Cisco VMware fight. and it has, let's say, lowered in terms of, let's say, significance and let's call it also criticality, but still it is there. And it's about Cisco. When they have their ACI, they connect via an API call through the VMM on the vCenter, and basically that is something that VMware does not support. So you can use it, but when again there is a big problem, it could be that VMware support says that you need to deinstall that integration before they look at it. And I know Cisco then has with their tech a solution that they can take all of that support on them, but you come into like a yes, no, or a ping pong type of, let's say, fight where you as an end customer don't want to be in. You want to have it fully supported on both ways. So that is a thing that you want to avoid at all costs. That's definitely a thing at Nutanix. There is no issue with Cisco ACI and integration on our stack. So that's already an important piece of the puzzle that has fallen off and that you can be using. And last but not least, on the Kubernetes side, and a lot of customers are having to adopt a Kubernetes, whether it is based on a software vendor that provides a Helm chart to run their application, or a part of our new model that needs to be connected to the core application. For any different reasons, they do their own development, etc. But that Kubernetes runtime, let me call it also a little bit like it should be also become a commodity. It's not the case yet, don't get me wrong, but at VMware, yeah, all boils down to it needs to be Tanzu, and Tanzu is fully integrated into vSphere, so that's the way going forward. There are certain solutions that only support Tanzu from a VMware perspective. I mean, but with ours, again, that choice, which I also mentioned in the beginning, is an important thing that we want to provide to the customers and let them choose whatever they feel most comfortable with on our HCI. Now, this is all things that I have seen and have been discussing with end customers, but there are a couple of, let's say, discussion points where you might want to be, let's say, also be aware of, and that you maybe already know, but certain things that are maybe red flags at customers that we cannot, let's say, immediately be answering or be like helping them out. And I wanted to also mention that clearly, because that is also quite important. So traditional storage versus HCI. So if the customer and the end customers is really into, yeah, but we still want that SAN, and we still have like a big investment in Dell or HP or Hitachi or what have you, well, yeah, this is not going to fly at all. So we can use that traditional storage area for other purposes, but it is a big chunk of their budget that is basically going to go unused or not used as what they were anticipating on. So I think that is a big point to take into consideration. If that customer is really high on traditional storage for X, Y, Z reason, this could not be like a good customer/partner for our. If they are already into HCI, they understand what HCI is, they see also the benefits, and a lot of them do, but have maybe also gotten some bad experience with vSAN. Don't get me wrong, that has also happened. Then they could and should be the right candidate, the right customers. The investments in like another hyperconverged solution, I put vSAN in here definitely as the one that is quite straightforward. That's investment in vSAN ready nodes. And let me be clear, not on VxRail, but in vSAN ready nodes, and to reuse that hardware. And that's depending case by case and vendor by vendor. We definitely can also look into with our hardware compatibility guide or list, similar as at VMware, and that we can reuse certain components or part of the servers to be able to be used as an HCI node from a Nutanix perspective. So that's also definitely already a question I have had in let's say, the short period I am now at Nutanix. So I'm about 1 month in, and already there was like a couple of questions that I received from partners/customers on, okay, could we reuse that hardware, which definitely is like, it depends. That's the first answer, but it could be like a possibility to look into. Another one on appliances that they are using, especially network appliances, security appliances. Important to understand this also in the migration. I will come back on that one in the migration framework. But there could also be like showstoppers on this. And it's not that they are not going to be, let's say, working, but it could be also even on the support side. So let us also be clear on that one. And last but not least, VMware is there already for more than 25 years. A lot of people have built their career on it. So they are also there scared at the end customer about, okay, what is going to happen with me? And a lot of also has been built on the APIs, on the vSphere or the vCenter APIs, which integrations have been done to run scripts, to do certain things, automation, to read out certain information to put into a CMDB, for example, all of this. So that's also an important piece, that how deep did they go, did they went into VMware, because that also would be like an additional complexity, and I mentioned this, that we need to overcome, and also migrating them towards Nutanix. Okay. So VMware install base. And this is about giving you a couple of examples on how it could look like from a VMware side, and that's with the new licenses, and how it would compare on the Nutanix side. I'm also looking at the chat. I don't see any particular questions, so I think this is for all of you quite straightforward, which I would have also thought. But one of the things that definitely is happening is Broadcom simplified really fast the different business units within VMware, or VMware by Broadcom, I should now say, and that new division. And even this slide is already a bit outdated, because the EUC part, and that's not only Horizon, that's also the Workspace ONE portfolio, that's already been, let's say, torn out. Carbon Black is also on the to sell list. And I know, or we also know the rumors, but I know also from being there, that Tanzu is a thing that they might be also looking at, or giving it like a chance to keep on living within Broadcom, but it could also be like gone in, let's say, a year, 6 months. Who knows? Yeah, some people would know, and that's also depending on, of course, the numbers. But all of the rest is quite straightforward. So everything is about Cloud Foundation. That's the old vSphere, vSAN, NSX is also in there, and all of the Aria suite. So vRealize, all of that is bundled into Cloud Foundation. You have a couple of, let's say, security focused and monitoring, network monitoring, that's more on the application network and security side, on the ANS. Then you have the edge side, which were a couple of, let's say, acquisitions they made, like VeloCloud, that is into the edge side of the house. And then you have Tanzu, which is more about everything that has to do with the application runtime, and not the Kubernetes runtime, because the Kubernetes runtime is a part of also Cloud Foundation with Tanzu Kubernetes Grid. So there is a mix and match of these different component tools, products, that are being, let's say, put now into 4 major business units. So if I then look at the VMware Cloud Foundation architecture, and I try to map it as much as possible to our stack, and I changed a little bit, even a couple of things from an internal slide I found. And so when I see this, so this is all now VCF, so all Aria products. including with the compute, storage, and network components from the software-defined data center, so vSphere, vSAN, and NSX. All of that is included into VCF. The only tweak I need to say, SRM, so their site recovery manager, so the DR solution, that's always an add-on. But I put it in there for make it simplicity. I put it also in there. So if we compare that to what we have at Nutanix, we have, of course, on the hypervisor and even on disaster recovery with our disaster recovery orchestration, we have the HAV capabilities next to, of course, also supporting choice on vSphere and Hyper-V on our AOS side. So that's on the AOS side, all of these capabilities, whether you want to run, let's say, your hyper-converged solution on there, you want to give like different protocols. AOS is there, the one that you would be using. And then we have, of course, Flow, which is the alternative from an NSX perspective. And let me be clear about that one. NSX has, let's say, a couple of, let's say, features which we currently do not have. So we are not at feature parity. But for the things where it was used, NSX, and that's especially on the security side, microsegmentation, there we have like the same capabilities. We could even say we have like VPC-alike capabilities, VPC, which you could also find at AWS, and when you create your VPC, where your EC2 instances would be running, or on a VNet from an Azure perspective, where then your instances, your virtual machine would be running. That is quite similar, and that was something that VMware only announced like at VMware Explore last year to get that VPC type of, let's say, functionality, and that was an announcement. It was not yet G8, and up to my knowledge, I didn't see a lot happening on that one. So they were not focused on, let's say, adding additional security capabilities like IDS, IPS type of possibilities into NSX, which were used by certain customers, but where, it then is into a really specific security market where a lot of, let's say, other vendors are definitely also stepping up, the Palo Altos, the Fortinets of this world, to making sure that the customer gets the outcome what they are looking for and with their products. So that's on the NCI piece and Nutanix Cloud infrastructure side. Then we have, let's say, the vCenter, the lifecycle manager, the API, which you can then be leveraging. We have there, of course, Prism Central, which we could, let's say, compare it with then on all of the Aria pieces. And you see also there the Tanzu Cloud Health. Cloud Health was also an acquisition made by VMware, but now it's into the Tanzu portfolio. It was into the vRealize suite. But we see that this NCM piece is fully covering it on the on-prem side and also on the public cloud side, with also that cost and security operations included, and that's with the Security Central, which you will also leverage. Then we have everything with this hybrid cloud. So whether it is the VMC on AWS up to, let's say, going into Alibaba Cloud or even Equinix, which is also a possibility. Now we are there a bit more, let's say, limited. We have like AWS, we have Azure, and we have Google. The others we do not have, but nevertheless, we have that NC2 possibility that is there also included. And then we come to, let's say, the cloud platform, which takes all of these into consideration. Now, one thing that VCDR, we also have there a ransomware compliance solution with our data governance side of the house. That is also there, then, let's say, our solution related to the VMware stuff. Then we have like the additional portfolio, the add-ons, which you would tie on there, like Nutanix files and objects. That was also on vSAN a possibility, which you could have, which they also have as an add-on. So that's a possibility. The data services for Kubernetes, they have similar stuff, but within their Tanzu portfolio. So again, also a similar an add-on, which you should be then getting from the Tanzu portfolio, whether that is Tanzu application platform or Tanzu application runtime or test the old cloud foundry piece. So that's also there. And then all of the data services, which we also have. So our database as a service, NBD. There is something similar at VMware called Data Services Manager, but that's quite limited in terms of capabilities and also quite new. Has been announced like end of last year. So also at the VMware Explorer. Yeah, and then of course we have also native hyperscaler infrastructure, which we can manage. So a real multi-cloud, so going into the EC2 instances from AWS, for example. Okay, so that's in a nutshell, a bit of, let's say, the overview on how do we compare. Now coming to VMware, and VMware was also a lot about looking into more and more that SaaS approach, whether it was vSphere plus, vSAN plus, Cloud Foundation plus, it was everything with the cloud console, and management would be then covered by VMware, and US customer would no longer be tied to doing a lot of, let's say, work. It was also with machine learning algorithms behind it to help out, be much more proactive, doing upgrades, security vulnerabilities checks, etc., etc. Now all of these, up to my knowledge, and it's not only on this one, it's also on the Aria SaaS products. There is like a stop on that one. I do not see a lot, let's say, SaaS capabilities anymore for the moment. It can come back, but currently I have understood a lot of, let's say, of these things have been put on hold. And on the SaaS piece, they are not working a lot anymore, or are asking to customers to, let's say, implement the solution on-prem instead of using the SaaS product. That's especially on the Aria components. So the new portfolio explains. So you have
Stefan, you're on mute.
Yes, Stefan.
sorry, where was I cut off? So I was. Did you guys?
Yeah, just at the beginning of this slide when you turned this slide on.
Let me come back. So this was. Let me go back one. Yeah, okay. So these were the cloud bundles before the VMware by Broadcom acquisition, and when they started to simplify. What they did now is they removed, like you cannot longer buy perpetual licenses and vSphere only. There is like 4 main bundles that they now have. On the left-hand side, you have still like core virtualization, Essentials Plus and vSphere Standards. These are for smaller customers, limited in amount of cores, for example, on the Essentials Plus example, or for like limited functionality that the customer might be needing, and that's in vSphere Standard. Then they have like the vSphere Foundation, what's called VVF, VVD. And then they have, of course, VCF. And VCF, by the way, is for these 2,000 focus partners the only way going forward. It's VCF, or you pay what you need to be paying us, and even there it can be on VCF challenging. So they really got rid of a lot of, let's say, bundles, and they made it quite simple. It's like core virtualization, and you have like two possibilities there, but it's really limited. Then you have vSphere Foundation for the ones that only are using vSphere. They get like a vSAN in there, and they have also Aria monitoring capabilities in there, and so Aria Operations. And then if a customer wants to have NSX, it's VCF or nothing, or they want to keep on running their VCF, it's or their NSX, it needs to be VCF. So that's them in a nutshell, and a lot of, let's say, add-ons that they have included on the vSphere Foundation and VCF. On the core virtualization, even there, not a lot of add-ons can be added. A couple of things like ransomware recovery. This is one that they wanted to be putting also for these customers, but not a possibility to run NSX or to run any additional, let's say, SDDC products or Aria products in that stack. So, okay. So again, in a nutshell, all of the different, let's say, platform capabilities, and whether we compare it with what they are used for, and how you then would compare them on the Nutanix side. That's for you. I'm not going to go over them again. I did that already, but it's just like in one nice eye chart that you can look at it. Now, a couple of, let's say, ideas about how does a VMware customers look like from an architecture perspective, and that's really high level, don't get me wrong. There are a lot of things that I did not put in there, because then the slide would be like really complex and not being, let's say, comprehensible. But you have like a lot of, let's say, these customers, and I would say that's a big chunk on running just ESXi hosts with vSphere vCenter on top with external storage. And there we have like two possibilities, going all in with AHV and replacing everything, or they can even have that NCI data piece where they can leverage that vSphere standard, depending on the features that they would be requiring. Or they can even go with NCM, which is also a starter that would include and have that additional, let's say, monitoring capabilities in there, which you would not have within VMware. So that's just giving an idea about what are possibilities. Now, another one is customers that have then also vSAN. I know, or the ones I know have always like a mixed environment. I know a couple of them in Belgium, Luxembourg, that are standardized on vSAN, so not a lot. In most cases, vSAN is being, let's say, added with the traditional storage arrays. And for this one, yeah, you can, of course, also move it to the AOS side. And again, also with that hypervisor that you would be leveraging. Of course, vSAN would be out. Let us be clear on that one. But then you have also like Site Recovery Manager. So the DR capabilities, which is an add-on where you also have your protected VMs and you put them into a placeholder VM, you do replication. Most cases, it's always the array replication which we use, the storage array. Not a lot of vSphere replication was used, maybe in smaller, let's say, SMB customers, but at enterprise customers, it was always via the array, and to have it also synchronous, and because synchronous in Europe is a thing, and it's an important which is not the same in the United States. Sometimes our US colleagues do not understand this, but we have like similar capabilities within, let's say, Nutanix, and apologies. So we have like also our RPOs. Now the RPOs, that's a big difference. With our platform, we can do, let's say, the asynchronous and the synchronous all at once. That's where, from a VMware perspective, they need the storage arrays. because their vSphere replication can go up to max 5 minutes RPO with vSAN then included. Otherwise, it's 15 minutes. And that's like a big difference whether you compare that with the Nutanix stack, where we have all of these capabilities. We have also that orchestration, similar as what you would have inside Recovery Manager, to be able to do your configuration, do your post, do your failover, test your failover, and even do some post scripting when the failover has occurred, to make sure that everything is running consistently and without any corruption. And so all of that similar is at Nutanix. So that's another which I see definitely at an average VMware customer residing into the Benelux or even Benelux region. Then we have a lot of customers that have the Aria suite, and whether that is Aria Automation, definitely a lot of them would have used it, but also the Aria Operations and even logging solutions. All of that can easily be like included into the cloud management. So the NCM, with also then the AOS included in there, or the NCI piece. And then depending on what the features or the capabilities that they are searching for, they could, let's say, look at the different, let's say, versions. Now, in most cases, from an automation perspective, and when I compare it with vRealize/Aria, it would be like self-service and cost governance that is the most profound. So having like a good insight on what people are asking to get deployed and doing a showback or chargeback, but in most cases it is for a showback, and to make sure this is what you guys are asking. Do you understand that this is costing money? And so that is one thing. And then a sort of service that they could, like with an API call or via a catalog, request the machines, or even an application blueprint. So a bunch of machines which they then would have that they can connect to, and then via their CI/CD pipelines run, let's say, the code or the new code that they would be, let's say, that they have been building up, so that they can run it into a test dev environment and then push it through their agile workflow. So that's in most cases that sort of service which is most profound being used from an VMware perspective when we cover that on an automation side of the house. And that can be leveraged by pure Aria Automation, but also with the orchestrator, which, by the way, you also get when you have your vCenter being bought. You get also like an Aria orchestrator included into that license. So certain customers also did a lot with the orchestrator to do also there's some automation on that one. We also have these capabilities with our runbooks, even on Prism, on the NCI piece. But if you want to do it a little bit more in a catalog and in a sort of service, let's say, way of working, then we come into the cloud management, which is based on Calm, so the product Calm. So that's another. And then last but not least, you have like the VCF stuff. And with VCF, yeah, you have like the whole compute and the SDDC, where you have also that deploy, that lifecycle management, that scale within workload domains, as they are called. But where a customer that wants to go into VCF, he needs to migrate. He cannot go from, let me give you an example, from this architecture. There is no way on having that being, let's say, uplifted or in place upgrades to become this. So it's always a migration which they are confronted with, whether they want VCF or not. Migration is the way of working. They have then the HCX tool at VMware. We use Move, which I'll come back on in one of my next slides. But nevertheless, so this is the solution, the complete solution when you compare it with VCF at VMware, which is our NCI and NCMPs bundled together. And then you can, let's say, mix and match them, or you can get them from an NCM perspective. So that both are being, or NCP perspective, excuse me, so both are being even combined into one SKU. So that's was a little bit what I saw from a customer's perspective, and now you could, let's say, compare them. And let me also see, 11 o'clock, I am good on time. So discussions with the customers, this looks like appealing. Okay, now customers are asking for, okay, how do we now start with migration? All fine, but I want to lower that risk as much as possible. How can you help out? What can we do? And what are also things that we need to take into consideration? Now, migration is complex, and I know one-click application moves and mobility all is nice, fancy marketing words. I like them, but there is no easy way on doing a migration. And that's on the VMware side, but also us. There is some additional, let's say, work to be looking at. I talked about a little bit about supportability in one of my earlier slides. And so things that you need to be taking care of, need to be looking at, whether even the customer is like a good candidate and to be able to move to Nutanix from a VMware perspective. Licensing considerations, we also touched on that one, but especially on, let's say, the change in the operating model, so the cloud operating model, because cloud is a way of working. It's not a place where you go to. That's an important piece of the puzzle if the customer is willing also to, let's say, look into that, or they are maybe already into that piece of mind. And then, yes, definitely there is like a nice, let's say, link or integration or collaboration we can put forward in helping them to succeed. So whether they are looking at more, let's say, making them in an infrastructure as code perspective, and so that the infrastructure needs to be like really open and easy to be consumed by anybody that wants to have resources for their development purposes, or that they want to do some updates on the same manner and the same principles on the infrastructure by doing upgrades. All of that is a thing. If that is definitely high on the agenda on the CIO and of the different teams, whether that is product managers or IT managers, then definitely that migration is still like a complex, but we are, I think, on a good wave and a good pace to help them succeed on that level. So this is just a start by, it is a complex thing, a migration. And depending the products that they are using from VMware, it is really even fast, really complex. Moving that virtual machine from one hypervisor to another, there is an open virtualization format that already existed for years. At VMware, I did that also towards AWS and back and to an EC2 instance. So all of that is quite straightforward. It's all of the rest with that risk management, the supportability, the application that also needs to cope with that performance, etc. Okay. So on that one, yeah, I mentioned this already. This is also how our professional services are working, and we're also from a partner perspective. When you are a service authorized partner, definitely a thing that we are working with you to be able to help out on that level at the customer. So when I mentioned in the beginning, a good knowledge of the VMware products, it's really important, and I want to stress it out, that you as a partner have also these capabilities, because the more you understand what they have been doing or what you have been doing on that side, the more we can or reuse certain things towards the Nutanix side, by the Nutanix products or not. Let me give you an example, because I know that product quite well. It's all of the vRealize products, automation, orchestrator, but also operations. A lot of that, especially on automation and orchestration, is based on or a YAML file, and YAML is quite generic, so you can use that. It's based on cloud init. That's also quite, let's say, general. So we are even using that into Calm. Or it is based on a script language, whether you use it at orchestrator, which is JavaScript, but it can also be PowerShell. It can be Node.js, for example. So all of these bash scripts that you might have been using, we can recuperate them. Now, the question is, do we want to recuperate because they maybe are already quite outdated? or is there a more efficient way to be leveraging and to be able to do what they want to be doing? So looking at the outcome. So that is an important piece of the puzzle that you need to first really good understand what they are doing on the left-hand side to be able then to move that towards the right-hand side by migration. And with a tool called Move, we'll come on that one because that's a move of the virtual machines, but it's more than only the virtual machines, but all of, let's say, the intelligence which you have on your automation or on your network overlay environment based on NSX, and with the security, with the firewalls included there. All of these needs to be really well discovered, assessed, analyzed, and then being, let's say, moved over. So that's the migration framework. There is nothing fancy about it. I think it's quite straightforward, and it's something that I think every customer or every company is using. But that assessment discovery strategy, and by the way, there are like ideas or general timescales in there about how does this look like in terms of, and it can be different. Again, it depends from customer to customer, but these timelines are basically a good example. And let me also do a shout out to a Belgian customer who will be also at .next in Barcelona in May, called ESCO, because they will be presenting. And they did like about 1,000 VMs on a 6 months basis. So to give you there a ballpark figure, where they also did their assessment, their discovery, they did their planning, and based on their planning, they then executed, and that was through the tool Move on that level. So that's already a bit of a shout out towards a presentation done by that customer at .next, who has, let's say, used this type of, let's say, framework to be able to move all of their virtual machines based on vSphere towards AHV on AOS. So that's that's a bit of a high-level project plan. I will not go over, but you will see this is like a Gantt chart where you have all of these different, let's say, components in there with product management included. By the way, and that service authorized partner, it's something that they can definitely do. We from professional services can definitely also help. Don't get me wrong. And in the beginning, I also talked about that VMware takeout promotion. So these services, which are then being done by a service authorized partner, you can also recuperate them as a partner up to 15K of migration credits. So again, there is additional, let's say, earnings and financial benefit on it. The more you do these, the more you are you have autonomy, self-fulfilling from a partner perspective, and raising up your skills, the more also you get additional money back from Nutanix on doing these migrations. Yeah, assessment discovery. These are just as a reference what you need to be doing. I'm pretty sure several of you already know what they should be doing when we talk about an assessment and discovery and creating like a migration strategy plan in different phases, doing the cutover, starting with what are, let's say, the different, let's say, application patterns which we have and where we can move them out, etc. Then you have, of course, that planning, which is a big important piece because you might, depending on the customer, need to be talking to different application stakeholders where downtime needs to be also taken into account and when is a good time. So that also takes time. And I know because I was in one of these migrations even at VMware on moving them to the public cloud, to a hybrid cloud perspective. And even that was like really time-consuming effort because nobody wants to touch their applications when they are running in production and etc. etc. So this is a big and a lot of, let's say, politically correct conversations need to be having. And then execution, and that's definitely also where the Move tool, so publicly available, everybody can use that. Where you then, based on your strategy, you have a bit of your run book, let's say, execution. You document that also in deliverables so that you can also have like status calls with the customers and then, let's say, progress. One of the things definitely to highlight is do dry runs. and also test your rollback scenario. Whenever there is a problem, and you will encounter a problem, let us be honest, that you know that that rollback is working fine, and you can immediately go back to the initial states or to the as-is state, and so that the customer is not impacted at all afterwards, and then you can assess again what happened, what went wrong, so to make sure that in the next wave you can accommodate that problem. But really important, these dry runs and the test the rollback on the execution to make sure that you do not get into, let's say, a more difficult period when you do a migration, that there is a big problem, and that at the worst case scenario, you need to go back to the backups and put these back into the production environment, for example. A couple of examples of large-scale migration experiences. I talked about ESCO. They did it in about 6 months, so about 1,000 VMs. Here you have like a couple of other examples with even the vRealize and or NSX, let's say, components included, where we from operational services with a partner helped to let's say do that assessment, move these machines out, also leveraging certain other portfolio components like NBD you see there on and that cost governance from an NCM perspective. So that's you see it's not only about just that vSphere, it can also be the rest of the components which we then can discover, analyze, and move them towards our stack. Okay, just as an FYI. Okay, now what is the methodology? Because I wanted to then show also a bit of, let's say, a demo, which is quite straightforward, don't get me wrong. Inventory tools, it can be as just an export of your vCenter server. It can also be like an export of the CMDB. That might also be quite handy to also do that application mapping and the dependencies. But RV tools, Nutanix Collector, are definitely good approaches and tools to at least start from a baseline. There are a couple of, let's say, other things with NSX, and that you also have your like a NetFlow type of, let's say, tool to be able to carve out where they are all connecting to, even maybe see some security issues that might be popping up with firewalls not really well, let's say, being set up or being created. But that's also an additional one which I definitely would emphasize. It's about first a baseline, making sure you have like additional, let's say, sources to verify. And last but not least, also on the network side, when it is also related with NSX, for example, that you also do like a NetFlow mapping on what VMs are linked towards each other, and so that you basically also can have these being put into like an application dependency to move them as such into your different migration waves. So that's a bit of an inventory, migration, and planning, up to then the validation, which we then are going to use the move to move certain virtual machines from the as-is state with their current IP addresses and properties in there towards then the HAV, so our hypervisor on our platform. So talking about Move, the people that do not know Move, it was also formerly called Extract, but that's like an old name, if I well understood. And again, I'm ramping up my, let's say, all of my knowledge on this one. So 10 years VMware with 1 month of Nutanix. I think I cannot even compare it at all. But the Move tool, and I tried it out myself. I didn't record it. So one of the things I will be doing and will be adding next to this recording is also a bit more an elaborate demo on a machine movement and also an application movement. So that at least also that's a little bit more, let's say, comprehensible and detailed. But with Move, we can not only from ASX to HV, but we can also move from the public cloud towards us, and also vice versa. The only thing which I did not see yet is that from HAB going back to ASXi, I did not see that that is possible. It could be, but there I must admit I am not aware. So but that's again that one-click migration. Yes, I would not say one click. It's a couple of clicks, but nevertheless, it's quite straightforward. It's easy to install. It's just 2 virtual machines. You map them to your endpoints, and your endpoints can, from a VMware perspective, be just a basic ASXi server where it then collects the virtual machines, or make it yourself much easier, connect to the vCenter, because then you have all of your virtual machines on your different hosts, even by different clusters. And then you map out a migration plan, and you can go up to 50 VMs at a time to move over. I don't think you will do maybe 50 at a time, but you will group certain amount of VMs together to move them and to replicate that from one site to another. Yeah, this was like a short demo. It's without, I think it's even from a .next, where I'm pretty sure it's from a .next, let's say, session from a year, 2 years ago that I did not, let's say, find. But basically, this is like an insight on the demo or on the move component, which you can then leverage. You see all of the different capabilities which you have to move from the source to the target side. And then when you have your different, let's say, endpoints being created, or environments, as they are called here, you can start with a new migration plan. And it's quite straightforward. It's selecting the VMs that you would be looking at. You select your source and from where you want to move. In this case, it's the vSphere side. And you move to the Prism Central with an AOS on top of that. You select which cluster you want to be, let's say, putting it, your container and your storage volume. And then you select the virtual machines which you want to group together. There is the application dependencies which you might want to be looking at. That you, if it's an application, that's database first, because to have like clear with that application tier and or web tier, that you want to even put that on different networks, and to also have like a segregated environment, or you want to apply microsegmentation immediately on a flat network, which has been done at the customer, or they want to do it now due to, let's say, some additional security angles. Now, in this case, one of the things that is definitely, it's a one click, so it will do a move. You can also do a cutover, and you can then test them out on a specific network. You can also fill in the administrator password to make sure we capture all of the information from the virtual machine. But if the machines are moved, there is still one, let's say, task left that you need to be doing. That's to install the guest tools from Nutanix inside of the machine. You can script that, of course, but that's definitely one that you need to also be taken care of inside of a runbook with an automation layer included in there, so that every time you do like a move of virtual machines, your runbook also can then kick off from the moment your move has moved the virtual machines, and so the objects, and then you can run that runbook to also install and make sure everything is, let's say, up and running as it should be. You can even do some scheduling for the data seeding, so that you do not impact at all the performance on the network during business hours. So I'm not going to, I'll have also this demo included into the presentation I will be, or will be sharing. But nevertheless, you see these 3 VMs in progress. And at a certain moment, you will have your cutover, let's say, being shown to you. And at that moment in time, it's that downtime, it's that wave that you need to then be discussing with your customer, to be able then to explain them, well, this weekend or that date we will do it. Your application teams, let them also already be aware, maybe that they can also test it out already also on that test network, so that we are all good when we do the real cutover with the production systems even included. If they do not want to run that virtual machine, there is also like another possibility with move to, let's say, only implement the data or send the data over and put them into new virtual machines. And so that way, that machine is also then like new for the environment, and also without any dependencies from the past. So that's another way on also looking at it, that you would be able to do that without having to leverage move by moving the virtual machines. So that being said, so that's the final phase here on the move side, where they are now going to do the cutover of the machine, and so that the machines will be residing into Prism, and they will be stocked on the ASXi/vSphere side. So in this case, you can now view the target VM. It's going to open Prism Central, and you then see that virtual machine with the same IP address into your Prism Central. And so that's on the short demo side. I wanted to also include that it's in the deck. Yeah, okay. So again, a couple of migrations from ASX to ASX. If in case you want to be doing that, there is of course also vMotion that you can be using. There is also backup solutions that you can be leveraging to also make them, let's say, be moved to the new environment. So there are a couple of, let's say, benefits and also considerations which you want to be like looking into. And it can go across clusters with a vMotion, but nevertheless, there are a couple of, let's say, possibilities there. Because it could be that in this case, the customer wants to do it this and wants to run the HAV later, again, to lower down that risk and to test all of the capabilities if needed. And that can also be done definitely later. And then again, move can be used. But I mentioned also application-based, so that you, from an application perspective, start to move the bits and the bytes out of the virtual machine and put them into a new greenfield VM that has no, let's say, information being replicated from the old historical, let's say, time or period. So that's a possibility. Best practices, and this is like really quite general, and I know it depends again always, but these are like things which we see to be successful migrations or where we look at and would emphasize on that one, especially on the grouping. I mentioned this already with application dependencies on network side, but also on, let's say, even a CMDB extract for the service discovery, the scheduling to optimize the preceding of that data to, let's say, make it, let's say, less time consuming and network intensive. There is also guest OS preparation, and that you can also be there, also taking into account, and database server migrations. And there is also the NBD point, which you can also be looking at to also make that as a possibility into your sales or into the conversation with the customer by, let's say, leveraging that also. So what I mentioned, move, it's not only about virtual machines. It's also about if your customer has like file shares that he is using on a source target, that you can also move them via the Nutanix files or NAS capabilities, for example, and that you can also put them like for like into your shares on the Nutanix environments. Or even, let's say, move them completely out. So copy them, move them out so that all the data is gone from the source and into the destination site on Nutanix. So that's also an additional possibility that also move can leverage. or not only just looking at the virtual machine, it can also be on file level, and it can also be on that database level. So that's one that I definitely also wanted to. I did not yet test this out, so on the move, I already played around with it. Let me be clear about that one, but this is one that I definitely also am going to look into, which is a possibility that we also have from a migration perspective. Okay. So this is then, the migration demo. One of the things I definitely wanted to highlight is if you are not aware, and let me just show it to you up. It's in here. You have also on the VM test drive, for the people that are not aware, this is like our hands-on labs that you can play around and get a first look and feel about the solutions with a bit of a script behind it and that you can follow. There is like a migration applications test drive module in here. If you then connect it to it, there is like a couple of things. There is like setting it up move. Really straightforward. That I already did. So that's like a virtual machine that you just install, and it's on ASXi. It's even an appliance that you download and that you can then import and just put there the right IP address, or let DHCP give it an IP address and discover. And on the same on the HV destination side. And then after this one, you then start to migrate your virtual machine, but you saw already a bit on the recorded demo, a similar approach. But this is more scripted, where you can also then go and look at it. So that's just there for your information. I wanted to also highlight this in terms of these capabilities. What I will be adding is like a more extensive and elaborated demo. I'll even see if I can make it like straightforward with an application that VMware, within the VMware demos, they are using extensively, which is like an e-commerce site. And they do it even on virtual machines and on containers. But it's on a Git repository, and I'm still connected to that Git repository, so I can let's say use these machines, put them on my vSphere environment, and then move them, and let you show that also that application completely has moved, and it is then completely running and being effective running on the HV. So that's one on my to-do list that I'm definitely going to do and be adding next to the slides you have seen already. So with that, I say it's around 11:30. I said I would have like 1 hour and 30 of content. So I am going to be like correct in my assumption. Any questions, things you were missing from this presentation? Was this a little bit what you were anticipating on? So a little bit of feedback would be highly appreciated, so that I can also take this into, let's say, my next, let's say, presentations. But I wanted to hear about the audience, what your feeling is about it, feedback, and anything you have as a question.
So we have a good as expected in the chat. Thank you, Celine. Anybody else with any feedback or any questions? Okay. Well, should there be any questions in the future, feel free to contact me or Stefan directly. If you need any additional information, yeah, feel free to reach out. We thank you all for participating. I'll put on my camera just for a split second there. It's otherwise very impersonal, so hi. thank you all for coming to this webinar. I hope, well, we both hope you enjoyed Stefan's elaborate explanation of how everything works. For my part, Stefan, thank you. It was really enlightening for me. So yeah, I thought it was really well structured. So that's my feedback. I really loved everything. Was really well thought out. So thank you for that. And for anyone who is participating, feel free to reach out. I can't say it enough. And well, we hope to see you all in the future, perhaps at .next, well, which will be in May. So please feel free also to reach out if you still have any clients which you want to bring. Let's see if we can make something happen. Yeah. All right. Have a great day, everyone. Enjoy your lunches, and we'll see each other in the near future.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.